So you're trying to cancel a subscription. Remember how easy it was to sign up? Just one click. But now you're lost in a maze of screens and menus. The cancel button is tiny and gray, almost invisible. Meanwhile, the keep my subscription button, huge, blue, and practically screaming at you. After a few minutes of dealing with this frustration, you'll probably just give up. And that's exactly what they want you to do. Behind all these sleek interfaces that you interact with on the daily, there's this hidden architecture that's specifically designed to influence what you do, often in ways that benefit companies at your expense. Welcome to the world of dark UI design, where the screens you're staring at are actually studying your behavior, analyzing your weaknesses, and exploiting your psychology. You might think it's just an annoying way to try and prevent users from unsubscribing. Let's break it down simply. UI stands for user interface, and it means all those visual elements you interact with on your screen. Buttons, menus, forms, that little shopping cart icon. When a designer creates a good UI, you barely notice it. It just works. It's intuitive. It helps you do what you came to do. But dark UI, that's something else. Dark UI, or dark patterns sometimes they're called, turns this entire relationship upside down. Instead of the interface serving you, you're serving it, or rather the company behind it. These are sneaky design tricks that manipulate you into doing things you probably wouldn't choose to do if you were thinking clearly. The guy who first spotted this trend and gave it a name is Harry Brignall. He described dark patterns as tricks used in websites and apps that make you do things that you didn't mean to, like buying or signing up for something. It's digital sleight of hand. You think you're making one choice, but the interface is actually hurting you towards another one. And here's what makes it so effective. Like I said, when a designer builds a good user interface, you don't notice it because it just works so smoothly. So the same thing applies to dark UI. When a good designer is making them, it can go unnoticed. So what do these dark patterns actually look like in practice? I'm going to walk you through some examples that you've definitely encountered, even if you didn't know what to call them at the time. The most egregious and stupidly simple example is those incredibly annoying online banner ads or mobile game ads. It's pretty common practice to make the X button as small as legally possible, in the hopes that when you try to click it, you'll fat finger it instead and open up the advertisement link. I know this seems like a slight inconvenience at best, but it's actually a bit more shady than you'd think when you do some digging. See, the agencies that make and distribute these ads for brands usually have to meet certain performance quotas if they don't want to get fired. So when you fat finger one of their ads on accident, it actually gives them a little point of sorts for how well they're doing. And with that kind of incentive, it's pretty obvious why it's such a common practice. Another example is those little website pop-ups where the no option says something like, "No thanks, I don't want to save money," or "No, I'd prefer to pay full price." That's confirm shaming. It's designed to make you feel stupid for not accepting their offer. I mean, they're literally trying to shame you into saying yes. It's middle school level peer pressure tactics. But they wouldn't be doing it if it didn't work and work well. Feels pretty manipulative, right? Then there's what they call the Roach Motel design, as in you could check in, but you don't check out. Easy to get into, impossible to leave. And it's not just annoying, it's become such a problem that major companies are getting in serious trouble for it. Take Amazon. In June of 2023, the FTC went after them for making it so ridiculously hard to cancel an Amazon Prime subscription. The FTC found that Amazon had deliberately created this complicated maze of screens, offers, and distractions to keep people from canceling their subscriptions. They even had an internal name for this cancellation process, the Iliad. That's a reference to Homer's epic poem that goes on for 24 books and thousands of lines. Basically, Amazon was saying they want to make your cancellation process an epic journey. Gym memberships are another classic example. You know how it goes. You can sign up online in 2 minutes, but to cancel, you're gonna have to show up in person during specific hours with 3 forms of ID and a notarized letter. Okay, really, it's not that bad, but it's pretty close. The FTC finally got fed up with this. In March 2024, they introduced what they call the click to cancel rule. It's pretty straightforward. If a business is gonna let you sign up online, they're gonna have to let you cancel online too, with the same level of simplicity. But that's not all. There's another sneaky trick called visual interference. That's when they make the option they don't want you to choose harder to see. Look at those cookie banners that pop up on websites. The accept all button is big, bright, blue, green, super gaudy, right? The reject option, tiny, gray text that blends into the background. All these little design choices exploit a basic human tendency. We follow the path of least resistance. When something feels hard or confusing, most of us will just give up or take the easy option, and that's exactly what these designers are counting on. But how do companies even create these manipulative interfaces? It's not random, it's not guesswork, it's actually a very precise science. First, companies collect massive amounts of behavioral data. They track literally everything: where you click, how long you hesitate before clicking, which parts of the page your cursor hovers over, and at what point you get frustrated and leave. All of this gets analyzed to identify what designers call pain points, moments where users struggle or abandon a process. And once they've gathered all this data, they run what's called A/B testing. Basically, they'll make two slightly different versions of a web page or an app screen and see which one gets the results they want. And maybe one of those versions keeps you engaged for 10 to 15 seconds longer on average. So they run with that one, make 2 more iterations of it, and the process continues. Let's say they want fewer people to cancel subscriptions. They might test 2 different cancellation screens. Version A makes the cancel button gray and small. Version B makes it even smaller and adds an extra confirmation step. Then they measure which version results in fewer cancellations. Whichever one wins becomes the new standard, and they just keep iterating from there. See, the most effective dark patterns tap into basic psychological principles. For example, loss aversion. It's this principle that says humans hate losing things way more than we enjoy gaining things of equal value. So designers know that, and they craft messages emphasizing what you'll miss out on if you cancel. You'll lose access to your premium features instead of you've enjoyed premium features during your subscription. Or they exploit things like social proof, which is basically our tendency to follow what others are doing. That's why you see messages like 15,000 people signed up this week, or Jane in California just purchased this item. And then you suddenly want to be like Jane, even though you don't know who Jane is or that she even existed just a few seconds ago. And she might not even be real. There's a behavioral scientist named BJ Fogg who pointed out something pretty interesting. He said, if you don't feel successful using a tech tool, you won't continue using it. Dark patterns flip this idea on its head. They deliberately make things like canceling a subscription feel frustrating and irritating because they want you to give up. They don't want you to cancel. What really concerns me is how precisely these techniques can be calibrated. The Journal of Neuroscience published a study showing that reward-linked stimuli, things like lights and sounds on a slot machine, can actually promote risky decision-making, especially when multiple senses are stimulated at once. The researchers were studying gambling behavior, but those same principles are being applied to your everyday apps and websites. And if it sounds familiar, that's because it is. The parallels between casino designs and our digital interfaces are practically identical. Walk into any casino. What do you notice? There's no clocks anywhere, no windows. There are confusing maze-like layouts that make it kind of hard to find the exits. There's also constant lights and sounds creating sensory overload. And remember those near misses on slot machines when you maybe got 4 out of 5 symbols and feel like you almost won? These design choices are engineered to create a sense of timelessness, disorientation, and the perpetual feeling that a reward is just around the corner. This stuff is so effective that even knowing about it doesn't really make you immune. I found this quote from someone in a research study on dark patterns. They said, "I am definitely manipulated, even when I'm aware of it. It's ridiculous." That's the scary part. Understanding these tricks doesn't necessarily protect you from them. Our psychological biases run deep, and these systems are designed to make us bypass rational thinking. Social media is probably the most advanced and widespread applications of dark pattern design that exist today, and we interact with them constantly. Think about infinite scroll. It's that feature where you just keep swiping down and content keeps appearing forever and ever. There's never a natural stopping point. No need to click next page. Nothing that makes you pause and think, maybe I should stop now. The content just keeps flowing. And before you know it, you've been scrolling for an hour and a half when you really just needed to check maybe 1 or 2 things. Notification icons. Ever wonder why they're almost always red? Red triggers a sense of urgency and can actually create a stress response in your body. You feel compelled to check it immediately. Google's search results page has been evolving in troubling ways too. Over the years, they've gradually made the visual differences between ads and genuine search results smaller and smaller. By January 2020, ads were nearly indistinguishable from organic results. Lots of people called them out for this, saying they were using dark patterns to trick people into clicking more ads. But these manipulations go beyond just getting us to spend more time online or clicking more ads. They're literally shaping how we perceive reality. As product designer Kat Zhou put it, Google and Facebook shape realities. Students and professors are turning to Google for their research. Folks turn to Facebook for political news. The primary sources of information for billions of people are literally designed to manipulate us. So is there any good news in this? Well, yeah, actually, a little bit. Regulators are actually finally waking up to these manipulative practices and starting to take action, at least against the most obvious offenders. We already talked about the FTC going after Amazon and implementing that click-to-cancel thing for subscriptions. It's a start, but it's just the beginning of what looks like a broader regulatory push. The European Union is actually ahead of the US on this one. They've introduced several legislative acts to combat dark patterns. The Digital Services Act specifically prohibits online platforms from using manipulative design. And while their General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR for short, doesn't specifically mention dark patterns, it does have provisions that can restrict deceptive practices in getting user consent. Looking ahead, the EU is working on something called the Digital Fairness Act, which is expected to release this year. It's meant to create a more unified approach to protecting users from dark patterns, rather than the fragmented regulations we have right now. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. These regulations typically only target the most obvious and blatant examples of dark patterns. You know, the ones that are so bad they make headlines. But what about the more subtle forms of manipulation? The ones that work kind of below our conscious awareness? For the most part, those remain untouched. And this gets to the heart of the challenge. As legal expert Martin Brank points out, there's such a fine line between legitimate persuasive techniques and illegal methods of coercion. But where exactly do you draw the line? Current regulations assume consumers are rational economic actors making logical decisions. But dark patterns are specifically exploiting our irrational behaviors and our cognitive biases. So what do we do while we're waiting for regulation to catch up? Education and awareness is pretty much the best bet. Research shows that when people are specifically taught to recognize manipulation, they become twice as likely to spot dark patterns. It doesn't make everyone immune, but it does give us at least a fighting chance.